Welcome back, everyone. Another interview here with our friends from Freedom Gold USA. We have Paul Cox with us, Senior Director at Freedom Gold USA. Happy holidays to you, Paul. And boy, it's crazy time of the year, and it's crazy also in the market as well. Uh, the Trump
Sure,
economy, as we all know, is headed this way, and there's good things, there's some bad things we're working through. Kind of talk about what that Trump economy looks like in 2025 and how it affects precious metals.
sure. Yeah, no, so good to see you too. Happy holidays. Um, well, his three, I think we talked about briefly the last time was the three policy moves that he's initially committed to. The paring down of the federal bureaucracy, right? Government um, really cutting the fat out, which I think he's got you know, Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk, amazing dream team, right? Um, Committed to that. Um, the tariffs that he's planning on imposing throughout the world, long time coming, 60% on China, up to 20% on our trading partners. And then, of course, uh, the deporting of undocumented workers. You know, it's aggressive, and while as we have talked about, in the long term, amazingly um, responsible in the long term and positive, for our future generations, my your kids, my kids, whatever. And but initially quite disruptive. The um, let's just talk about the tariffs. It's going to be difficult. The China's going to balk and most likely um, be forced into moving to possibly taking over Taiwan. This could generate even if it's just a couple of shots across the bow, or rather, um, it could lead to an undulating stock market, and markets in general. Um, the the idea of imposing 20% tariffs on our trading partners can be a little tricky. It brings up that beggar thy neighbor, um, kind of sentiment that we had during the 30s, um, where we were um, essentially asking our neighbors, our trading partners, like, just bear with us. We know what we're doing. It's going to be tough for us and you. Just bear with us, and not disrupt the relationships, not push them towards maybe a heightened pairing with China and other, nations that could give them better deals or whatever. These are, like I said, positive in the long term, but short term, very disruptive. Gold will absolutely, um, be the barometer, um, and without a doubt, you can look at in the futures market the gold and silver contracts they're laddered up, and they're anticipating this. So gold is going up, and the tax cuts as well. Tax cuts are going to be somewhat, um, like I said, in the long term, very positive. But you have a burgeoning deficit, and these tax cuts are highly inflationary. I mean, it's going to be a battle with the Federal Reserve, on lower rates, raise rates. Trump is going to push to have rates lowered. The Federal Reserve is going to have no other um, recourse than to uh, raise rates. They're going to have to. They're already intimating towards such right now, and that kind of volley, or that kind of bad marriage that I think is coming between the Trump White House and the Federal Reserve. Again, very positive for the how gold works. It'll kind of gauge that
Yeah.
that volatility, and the how do we deport these undocumented workers without disrupting the job markets? California, what, the fifth largest economy in the world, um, I think is will be, this is we produce the produce, fruits and produce for the world. The good thing, the positive thing about this is that, just think about, I mean, somewhat of an aside, you know, we import a lot of the food we eat, when in reality we have the potential to feed our country quite liberally, with what we produce. So, like I said, in the long term, it could be, it could lead to bringing, business back to the States, manufacturing, and also, a boost to the, domestic farming industry. And
Yeah. Well, I want to get
so,
one thing you said before, besides all that, that I thought that was key what you said is I want to go back to, you said gold is going to go up. I mean, so if you're listening, you're watching, I mean, in other words, now is the time to buy and invest before it does go up, right?
sure. Yeah. I mean, people, gold moved up, what, 35% up until Trump was elected. Then it's pulled back minimally. I mean, it's pulled back maybe $100 since he was elected. And this was due to kind of like this irrational exuberance of like, oh, everything's answered now, everything's going to be great. And typically gold measures the instability, right? Of what happened is that the stock market blew up again, just thinking like, oh, risk off, let's go, and the party's on. The fact that gold hasn't fallen, it's been solidly in the base that it is now, around 2650. The fact that it didn't like immediately slide down to, say, half of the growth we had during this year, which would have been, three and a probably $300, $350. The fact that it didn't is indicating that, number one, this, first of all, it's healthy, that kind of a pullback. So there's nothing, even if nothing had changed as far as in the White House, it would be considered healthy, that gold pullback. You don't want things to go straight up. If it goes straight up,
Right.
it goes straight. And the fact that it's been solidly over the last 2 weeks in the 2650 range, that's building a solid base to ladder up. Um, you know, it's funny, you think, you have your eye on a car in a car lot, and you see the price, and you're like, oh, that's looking good. I'm gonna buy that car, and you drive by the next day, and it's like, they've slashed it by 5%. You're like, oh, I don't know if I want to buy that, now. I want to wait till it goes back up. If you know why you're buying gold, which is really to offset future loss in purchasing power, you get it now. You get it now for a number of reasons. Not only because it's a nice little pullback, not only because it's insurance in the long term for purchasing power, uh, uh, you know, uh, solidification, but also because of the supply and demand. Supply and demand is indicating right now that the low-hanging fruit is gone.
Yeah.
They're having to go, more comprehensive, esoteric type of mining techniques to get it's not the rich ore that once was, and it's not an infinite resource. And you have China, Russia, India that are buying at an unprecedented rate, primarily their central banks. And by the way, China just made it, I don't know if it's illegal or they cannot do it anymore, but an average citizen cannot buy physical metal now.
Wow.
Whereas up until recently, they were aggressively, this is a nation whose citizens save 38% of their purchasing of their income. They've been buying gold in their, the citizenry had been buying gold and silver, understanding that the power over the long term of saving that purchasing power. By the way, in the same study, the typical American saves -2%. And the typical American really doesn't understand gold. It's a testimony to the Federal Reserve and and the government to kind of alienate what is considered the oldest currency in the world,
Yeah.
and has historically always been, it's never gone to zero. Fiat currencies like the US dollar, which is not tied to intrinsic value, there's never been a fiat currency that hasn't gone to zero. So,
Yeah.
So it's this, and I think, I was reading an article recently that the only area in the world that hasn't been fully scoped out for its gold reserves is under the ocean. Now, can you imagine how much it would cost to mine 1 ounce of gold if it was at the bottom of the ocean somewhere? Eventually, it's going to go there. So, I don't want to get too mired in information that maybe the average citizen wouldn't really appreciate, but the banks are loading up, physically loading up with physical gold, physical silver. They're loading up in it. 2019, they had the Basel III Accords, which was like a reintroduction of the Dodd-Frank regulations of 2008. And they made gold, physical gold, a tier 1 asset where it had prior been tier 3. Tier 3 meaning not very liquid, not considered liquid. Now, tier 1, like cash, it's being considered an appropriate part of a bank's. All banks can buy it, own it, and have it represent, collateralize outstanding, loans and capital requirements.
Yeah.
So institutions are buying it, and the last Main Street, which is what we do here at Freedom Gold, we provide gold, silver, palladium, and platinum to physical, and we also help people put it in their IRAs, make those retirement accounts work for them, protect what they have in there. We're going to be the last. Main Street is going to be the first, I guess, victims of the supply flowing into the banks. It's not going to be it's either going to be too expensive or it's not going to be there.
Sure.
And so.
Well, Paul, we appreciate it. Ran out of time here. But just real quick, just tell me how they get hold of you and Freedom Gold USA and all your partners over there.
Yeah. Call us up and tell us that you've heard us on American Ground Radio, and you can reach us at www.freedomgoldusa.com/AGR, American Ground Radio, at 888-411-1746. And if they mention that they've seen the show, and listen, no commitments, no commitments at all. We do things differently here. We're a consider ourselves a discount bullion dealer, and we'll help them out. We'll educate them, completely transparent. And listen, if they don't decide to move forward, no problem. There's no commitments.
Paul, we
So,
appreciate it. Thank you so much,
yeah,
and we'll
thanks
talk
for
to you
your
very
time.
soon.
You bet. Thanks for your time.